Hey guys, it's Vintage Vinny, and welcome to the Show Off Your Hometown Challenge hosted by Mary Beth and Laura from Fatbird Finds. Because I don't live in the town that I grew up in, a lot of the things I'll be sharing with you all are mainly going to be photographs, some way before my time, and some that were taken during present day. I don't visit my hometown regularly. I stay exactly where I am now, or I mainly go into Pennsylvania. So, without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. So welcome to my hometown challenge by me, Vintage Vinny. Today we're going to be talking about the towns of Germantown, Maryland and Gaithersburg, Maryland, both towns in where I grew up, which are also located, both of these towns are, let me rephrase that, both of these towns are located in Montgomery County, Maryland. So we're going to start off by taking a look at the homes I grew up in. So this is a picture of the apartment complexes that both my brother and I, at one point grew up in. There were multiple buildings in this one little neighborhood, and each duplex housed I think 13 apartments, going from A to M. This is what they looked like circa 2005, as you can see from the image. They did renovate it over the years when we were living there, and they made it look a little bit better, and it looks even more welcoming than it did back then. These houses were built in the mid-80s, early to mid-80s, I believe, and my dad bought the condo that he had for years in the early 90s. And when he met my mom and my mom was pregnant with me, we lived here. So part two of the homes I grew up in. I only grew up in two different homes. This is the house that my grandparents purchased back in 1973. Of course, this photo isn't from 1973. This was right before we moved to where we are now. My grandmother and my grandfather had a passion for the vintage antiques. At the time, a lot of the antique tools and the advertising and the tins and all the food containers were really in. And that's what the home was filled with. Over the years, they collected a lot, and after my grandfather passed away in 1984, unexpectedly, my grandmother stopped doing the antique thing because that was something both she and my grandfather did together. And my dad kind of picked up on it because he would go to the antique shops and flea markets with them because he was the baby of the family. And so in the years to lead up to my time and then my brother's time, my grandmother didn't really change or update the house at all. It still had all of the wallpaper and still had the original cabinets from when the house was built, and the same thing, like she had all the furniture and the lighting and decor from the 70s and the 80s still up. And yeah, it was definitely a very vintage home. Like I said, she didn't change much at all. And we lived here for a while. I think my brother was born when we were living in this house. My parents' bedroom was here on the far right. Let me move the arrow over. That's where actually when my brother was a baby, he was in this room also. And then that was my parents' bedroom. Right above here, that was my room, and when we moved back into this house after my grandmother passed away, that's where I stayed. This was my grandmother's office, where she did all of her office work and things like that, and then that's also where she wrapped Christmas gifts. That turned into my brother's room. Here is the kitchen, and then this was the family room, the far end of the family room, and that's the front door. So we lived in the condo I think from the time I was born, 1995, up to about 1998, and then we moved in with my grandmother because we needed the space. And then my mom and dad got pregnant with my brother, or my mom got pregnant with my brother. And then around 2003, it was March of 2003, I think it was, we moved out and we went back to the condos. And we lived there for 8 years until she passed away. And then we moved back to this house and we lived there for 6 years. So we moved out in 2017. So I thought you guys might like to see a really cool picture of what the entrance to the neighborhood looked like when my grandparents moved there, or my dad's family moved there. So this photo was taken in 1972, about a year before they moved here from Massachusetts. So as you can see, this little brick house you're going to see in just a second also, but notice all of the undeveloped land that's right here. And this is what it looks like today. There's lots of different plants and lots of different housing developments. Montgomery County is a very expensive area to live in, and it does house a lot of different incomes. So you've got low income all the way up to like really nice areas like in Potomac. And over the years, it's just not the quality of wanting to live there. It's, while the prices may still be high, it's just not, to me personally, it just has gotten really bad over the years. So we're going to go ahead and talk about the schools that I attended. And I'll talk to you all a little bit about the history if I know about it. So Diamond Elementary School was built in 1975. And they were located directly across the street from my grandparents' house. Like literally, our address was right before the school's address. We were literally neighbors. So this is what it looked like. And I think this picture was taken around circa 1978, so 3 years after the school opened. And this is what it looks like today. Now, when I was growing up, like right around the time I started kindergarten, which was around the year 2000, 2001, the doors and the windows that you see right here were actually painted like a minty green. And I remember as the years went on, the green paint started to come off and you could see the rusting on the metal, so they went ahead and painted it red. And I think they did that maybe like my 3rd grade, around 4th grade maybe. I can't remember exactly. But what's really, really cool about this elementary school is the art and music teachers were there from day one. So when my dad attended this school, he was in 2nd grade, and they taught him from 2nd grade up to the time he went to middle school in, I think, 1978. It was like fall of 78 that he went to middle school. Because remember back then, at least where my dad went to school, you went from elementary school, your elementary school was kindergarten through 6th grade. Nowadays, it's kindergarten through 5th grade, and then middle school is 6th to 8th, and then 9th grade to 12th grade is high school. So yeah, so the same teachers, and they just retired a couple of years ago, were there at this school from 1975 to like 2017, like, I think, no, maybe it was like 2016, 2017. So they were there for like over 40 years. So they taught 2 generations in my family. So that's really, really cool. So continued with the schools I attended. This is middle school. This is Lakelands Park Middle School. And this was built, I think, in maybe 2004, 2005. Maybe it was like 03, 04. I can't remember exactly. It was right around that time, like the mid-2000s. And fun fact about this school, at the time that this was built and they started staffing teachers, this school only taught 7th and 8th grade. They didn't have enough teachers at the time to teach the 6th grade. By the time I arrived at this school in 2006, I think it was, they had 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Which, by the way, I forgot to mention, with the elementary school, I attended there from 2001, I think it was. No, year 2000 to the year 2006. Fall of 2000 to summer of 2006. Here I attended from 2006 to 2009. The high school I attended was Northwest High in Germantown. This is the school here. It's rather large. It was built in 1998, so by the time I got to the school, it was already 11 years old. I started there in the fall of '09, and I graduated in 2013. And the school is still there. It's been there now for 22 years. So now we're going to get into the places I frequented. Now we're not going to get into every place that I've gone to a lot because that would take forever. So this is what Casey Barnes looked like years and years ago, way before my time. This was probably the early 1900s. And as time went on, this became a community center where they housed preschool, they did lots of art classes, ballet, religious ceremonies, things like that. And my grandmother actually worked here from 1980 till 2010. So she worked as an office manager for 30 years. And she had to retire, unfortunately, due to her declining health with cancer. Her retirement party was a few months short of her passing. It was in August of 2010, and she passed in February of 2011. So it wasn't very long after she retired that happened. And she had to retire because of her ailing health. I don't know if I said that or not. But I remember as a kid just going here all the time, and with my parents' schedules, sometimes we would have to, I think it was in elementary school, I remember my mom would come pick us up and she had to be here to help with the afternoon's events and the evening's events. And my grandmother would take us to her house, and then we would wait there for Dad to come and pick us up because he worked during the day and he didn't have to work at night. And then things changed. And then my mom got another job, and then my grandmother still worked there up until she had to retire. But I remember going there a lot, and growing up in the same area, you get to know a lot of people. And so I knew a lot of people that worked here, and I just knew a lot of people that my grandmother was friends with because she met them while working through the city of Gaithersburg. So, you know, when you grow up somewhere, you know a lot of people, and that's one thing that I somewhat miss about living where I used to, but I'll talk more about some of the downfalls of living where we do now, or where I did once live. So we're going to talk about Lake Forest Mall, and I do want to warn you all that this is going to be a longer portion because we did spend a lot of time here. I'm going to show you some more awesome historic photos of this place, and show you what it looks like now versus what it looked like then. So Lake Forest Mall opened up in 1978, and my uncle actually worked for one of the anchor stores that was there, Sears, back then when he was in high school. Just, you know, typical high school kid who wants to make some money, get some gas, pay for his car, what typical teens do. And the anchor stores that opened up in that mall in 1978 include JCPenney, Sears, Woodward and Lothrop, and Hex, which I'm sure a lot of those department stores seem pretty long gone, especially with how things are nowadays. So, let me show you some pictures first. So this is what it looked like when they were still developing it, and this is what it looks like now, or at least it used to look like. I don't know if it still looks this way now, but so in 1995, Woodward and Lothrop closed up shop, and the department store Lord & Taylor took over that property, or that store. In February of 2019, JCPenney announces that they are closing. In June of 2019, just a few months after JCPenney announces it's closing, Lord & Taylor closes, or plans on closing, and they do by September. By August of 2019, Sears announces closing and does so in December. So right as Christmas time was coming to a halt. So let's see, 4 of the anchor stores left in recent years. So Hex department store was there from day one up until 2006, so it was there for 28 years. JCPenney was there for 41 years. Lord & Taylor was there for 24 years. Sears was there for 41 years also. Woodward and Lothrop was there for only 18 years. It's really, really crazy. So here's another really, really cool image. So this is the mall in present day. And this is what I remember it looking like. So Sears was 2 levels. And then this place over here, like right here, it was a ton of different things. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I know if you go right down here, KB Toys used to be there, and then Claire's, and I think a Hallmark store also used to be there. So here are some more awesome pictures of Lake Forest. This was right around the time that they were building it. And we are about to hit the 15-minute mark, so I'm going to go ahead and end it here, and we'll come back. So like I was saying, this is when Lake Forest Mall opened, the grand opening here in 1978 on the left, and then on the right is all of the construction. And I know the photo is not the best quality, but this is the best I could do to find this. So this is when they were, I guess, putting together the main lobby with all of the stairs and the fountains and things that you'll see in later photos. So here we see on the left the mall in the 70s. It's got the fountains and the stairs and everything like that. They did remove all of this, including this play area, which was taken in modern days, in 2013. Like, I visited this mall, I think, maybe 2 years after we had moved away, and all of this was gone. All of this. All the fountains, all of the play areas, it was gone. It was like a piece of my heart was ripped out because it just was not the same without these things, because they've been there forever, and they were just a part of my childhood and a part of many other people's lives. The play area that we see over here was right where the elevator was. Like, the elevator would bring you down, and you could see the play area. This was also the place where Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny would be. No, maybe it was just Santa. Santa would be where the play area was, and then the Easter Bunny was at the other side of the mall. So, yeah, that was a little bit surprising and a little upsetting when I found out this was gone. They had it originally, I think when I visited, they had like a little roller derby or something, like a fenced-in roller derby that you could pay for and just roll around in, which is not the same as this play area. So yeah, that was a fond memory of my childhood. Like, just looking at this, I remember playing on this, as many other kids did. This fun thing right here, this little dragonfly, or the frog catching the dragonfly, you could balance on the tongue, and then you could jump off of the mushroom and the dragonfly. I remember that so much, and I enjoyed it every time we went there. So like I said, there's a lot of Lake Forest Mall here because this is where we spent a lot of our time. So again, here is the fountain in 1978, and over here is a more modern day pic before they took it out, and you can see the same platform right here. Again, the picture is very blurry. When I did find this, it was very small, and I made it bigger so the image got blurrier, but you get the picture. I assume this is Lake Forest Mall also, from what I'd seen on the internet. And so, let me show you here. So if you were to walk right, see where the elevator is? If you were to walk underneath the elevator where this is right here, you would come across Lord & Taylor in the 90s and up through the 2000s. So this is where the fountains and stuff were, and then when I was little, this, I think that says Pendleton Shop, that became I think that became a Yankee Candle, which I loved going into as a kid. Right next to Yankee Candle was a Godiva store, which was awesome too, but they were really, really expensive, so we never really bought anything from them. But yeah, I mean, while this was only taken in the 70s or maybe even into the 80s, it's still a fond memory for me because the layout of the mall is still somewhat the same. So in recent years, with the tragic decline of major department stores, like I mentioned with Sears, Hex, JCPenney, Sears closed within the last year, and JCPenney unfortunately closed too, leaving Macy's to be the only anchor store now that Lord & Taylor is gone. it's such a sad thing to see. I mean, these stores, these department stores have been in people's lives for generation after generation after generation. Some of these stores go back to the 1800s, and they were in business for so long, and then, so many things in society changed with online shopping and, just so many other contributing factors. So many stores that were such a huge hit at one point in our time are just unfortunately slowly but surely leaving our presence, and it's really sad. Also, another thing I want to mention is Montgomery County, like I mentioned, has grown very, very rapidly in the last, I would say, probably about my time, 25 years. And a lot of the surrounding area of Lake Forest Mall, there's been a lot of like low-income housing and affordable housing for those apartments and things like that. And they're not exactly the nicest place to be. Like, I wouldn't want to live there personally, because it just isn't a nice area, and a lot of things have taken place, not so great things. Like, there's been some shootings, and there's been a couple of homicides also, and it's just, the area, the mall itself now is not even a great place to be at. Like, all the stores are basically like kiosks with foreign imports, and a lot of the stores that are there now are not like high up corporate office, like corporate stores. It's a lot of, like I said, like foreign imports and like furniture stores that don't have like any special name to them. They were just occupying space in the mall. I remember years and years ago how many great stores used to be at this mall. Like I mentioned before, KB Toys, Claire's, Hallmark. There was a Discovery store, a Disney store, Brookstone, candy stores. Just so many fun things that I remember so much as a kid, and I loved going to the mall just to be at those places, and none of them exist anymore. Like, they all went out of business, and it's a really sad reality, because this mall was such a big part of my childhood. We would always go here, and it was not nearly as bad as it has gotten now. So I have very fond memories of going to this mall. So here's another fun piece of history. In the mid-70s, Clopper Lake was developed. So this is what the construction of this lake, this is a man-made lake. What they did, what the construction that went through with this. So they're digging it out. And on the right is a modern-day picture of what it looks like. It's a man-made lake, like I mentioned. And they dug it out and filled it with water, and it's been that way for over 40 years. And we used to go here a lot, too. And what's really cool is that when my dad was a kid, there used to be a bunch of farmland and everything. So he would be able to go over there if he wanted to. And even in present day, you can find old bottles and broken up dishes and fun things like that. Like even doorknobs you find over there that we found in the past. It's so historic and it's so neat. Now this literally you could walk to from my grandmother's house. Like we have a wooded area, or we had a wooded area, and it would lead you right up to the street where you could cross to get into the woods. We've had some really great memories here. There's a great playground to go to, just fun nature hikes. This is also the place where they host the winter lights that the city of Gaithersburg puts on. I should have included that in my video here, but maybe I'll add that on later. But yeah, it's a very fun thing. We would go every Christmas. We'd drive through Seneca Creek State Park, and there'd be so many different lights surrounding the different parts of the park. And it's another fond memory I have from Christmas time as a kid, and it was just so much fun. And then over the years, it just got harder and harder to go in there because so many people, being a very congested area, you couldn't get into it and just go right through it like you used to be able to do. So that was another fond memory. I'll show you all more of that stuff later on in the video. So yeah, this is the lake. And I will link the Gaithersburg Then and Now website in the description box. So if you want to see more of Gaithersburg, what it looks like, and some of the historic sites that there are, I would highly recommend you check it out. So this is a mill house that used to be like right on the ridge. Well, I don't think there was a road there then, but this is what it looks like now. It's in ruins, and I think it's much worse than what it is now. So it used to be a big old house, and I can't remember exactly the true history of it, but I know that when we would hike down in these woods, we would go into this little thing and we'd find some stuff sometimes. And like I said, such a cool thing. Like I mentioned before, I lived in the Germantown, Gaithersburg area, and coming from Germantown, we would take a little shortcut. I just stuttered there. Shortcut on a wavy road that went down a hill, and when you'd get to the stoplight at the bottom of the hill, you could see this house. You could see the ruins of this house, or this mill house. And over the years, it really started to really fall apart, with weather conditions, and then, the material that it was made of degrading. And yeah, so it's always fun to go see it and see that it's still there even after all these years. I mean, it's of course not this beautiful work of art here, but it's still a piece of what remains of a really cool historic building. So now we can get into the fun facts, and there are a couple of not so fun facts, but I thought I would mention them anyway. So, John Wilkes Booth, who we all know was the person who gunned down Abraham Lincoln in Ford Theater, his conspirators were caught at / near Richter Farm, which is in Germantown, Maryland. Baseball player Walter Johnson had a huge farm in Germantown, and he also passed away there. And there's a high school in Bethesda, Maryland that is named after him, Walter Johnson High School, obviously. My dad knew and was friends with two members of the hit band Hootie and the Blowfish. Dean Felber, my dad grew up with in the same neighborhood, and Mark Bryan, he met in high school and were friends all the way through that. They were all the same age, so that was really cool. I can't remember the name of the song exactly that I like the most that's by Hootie and the Blowfish. Let me see if I can find it real quick and I'll let you know. I think it's called Only Wanna Be With You. Yeah, Only Wanna Be With You by the Hootie and the Blowfish. That's the one song I know by them. So Jonas Salk worked on the polio vaccine at Casey Barnes. Remember the place I told you that my mom and my grandmother worked? Years and years ago, he was working on the polio vaccine there, which is really, really cool. So, famous actors Sylvester Stallone and Goldie Hawn attended Montgomery Blair High School in Bethesda, Maryland in the 1960s. Linda Carter, who is very well known for her role of Wonder Woman on the hit TV show in the 1970s, has a home in Potomac, Maryland. And no, I have never met her, nor have I ever even seen her there. It would have been cool, but I don't think I've ever seen her or ever had an encounter with her at all, as far as I remember. In the late 1990s, boxer Mike Tyson was arrested in Montgomery Village, Maryland for a road rage incident. So another famous person. Now this next famous person is a little bit more modern. The rapper Logic grew up in about the same area as I did. Now, I don't know that our paths ever crossed. I don't think we did. And the only reason I say that is reading about his background and his childhood, it was a complete 360-degree turn from what mine was. I came from a very loving, warm home, and he didn't have that. So I think he was in and out of trouble a lot as a teen, and, which is, I guess, what happens when you have a broken home. And his song, I think it's the Suicide Hotline number, is one of my favorite songs by him. Or is it by he? I think it's by he. Wrong grammar there, but yeah. So yeah, he grew up there. Again, I don't think I've ever met him. Our paths might have crossed at one point, but we just didn't know it. Or I didn't know it. Because he's 4 years older than I am. So he was born in 91. I was born in 95. So Brookville, which is located in Olney, Maryland, was the capital for a day in 1814 after the British burned D.C. to the ground. Pretty cruel. Pretty cruel. Yeah, pretty cruel on the British part, but pretty cool piece of history. So these next two facts are... Oh, hold on, we're going to have to end it right here real quick. So these last two fun facts, I guess you could say, are not really fun. They're just factual and a part of Montgomery County's history. So in October of 2002, the DC snipers targeted innocent lives throughout Montgomery County. My dad was at the very gas station that they first targeted just hours before it all took place. So I know that John Allen Muhammad, who was the older of the two, was executed in 2009. And Malvo was sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences without parole. So he's still alive, the older guy is dead. And it's so funny because, well, not really funny, but I've been to that gas station many, many times over the years, going to Maine with my uncle. And we always stop there and fill up and get a few things before we hit the road. And it never occurred to me that that was the gas station that happened at. And this is going on 18 years ago now, which is crazy to think about. And the last quote-unquote fun fact is my brother's friend, and I guess this was an acquaintance, I guess somebody that he knew but didn't really, wasn't friends with. So the friend and the acquaintance were gunned down in Montgomery Village the night before they were set to graduate high school back in 2017. This event made headlines around the country, and I think it also made headlines around the world. It was crazy that this even happened, and it was the night before high school graduation. These kids were so young, and it's horrible to think that this happened. And I think it was over something really silly, and I just can't remember exactly what happened. But yeah, it was a huge shock, and I remember at the graduation ceremony, they honored these two kids. I think they gave their parents the diplomas that they would have received at the very end of the ceremony. It was a very touching moment, but it was also very tragic to think. It was horrible. But let's go ahead and we will check out some more fun stuff from this really awesome video, shall we? Let's get some more positivity instead of all this negativity in. To end this video on a more positive note from the last two fun facts I shared, I thought you guys might like to get a chance to see what the winter lights are like at Seneca Creek State Park. Some of my fondest memories from the holiday season go right to this park at Christmas time, with all the different lights and the different displays that the city put on, and it's just a really great, great piece of my childhood that I will never ever forget. So here we go. Just look at the bright lights and the exquisite displays of extraordinary lights. It just doesn't get any better than that. Not for Gaithersburg. And they did the whole park. You'd circle around the whole park and there would be different light displays. And it was just such a fun thing to do. They would go through the lake, and they would circle all around near the playground with lights, and they'd have teddy bear land, and you'd have winter woods, and you'd have all kinds of great stuff. So we'll continue. So here's the display for Winter Woods. So I like the animated lights, and this one was definitely that. The waterfall lights twinkled, and then you had a fish that would jump right into the falls, which was really, really cool. This was a picture that was taken many years ago of the park itself. It's not exactly a clear image, but you can tell just how cool it is. And like I said before, I really like the animated lights of like the bears painting pictures, and this one right here, which is a motion animatronic light where they are balancing on gifts and he's trying to put the star on top of the tree, and it's just incredible. And they have this one too, which features the Gaithersburg station along with the clock, some lampposts, and then the Gaithersburg water tower, which I don't even think there is a tower there. And then another one of my favorites is something that you see at the very end. It's of a bear popping up out of a Christmas gift, and he's holding a banner that says Happy Holidays. And you can kind of see it's an animatronic because you can see the part that's not lit up right there of him getting ready to surprise you. Again, this is just a really, really fun memory for me. We went for several years. It was part of a tradition. One year I remember City Hall was offering a free bus ride with a bunch of other people to go through the park to visit the lights. I remember doing that. I think maybe for a couple of years we did that. And we didn't have to pay for it because my grandmother worked for the city, which was awesome. Again, it's another fond memory that I have of childhood, and they won't ever do anything like this again. Like when I'm older, I don't think, or maybe it will even be better than this, but this is just such a fond memory of mine, and I will never ever forget it. And I just love it so much. So I would like to thank you all for joining me on this really awesome Homeland Challenge. I hope you all check out all the other ones, because I'm sure there are some other great places to see throughout the country or throughout the world if you participated in this challenge. So be sure and give this video a big thumbs up and leave a comment below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Be sure and click the bell next to the subscribe button if you'd like to know when new videos are posted. The links to my social media accounts via Instagram are down below in the description as well, where you will see pictures of items to come in future haul videos. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all soon. Bye guys.